The thing that I love so much about Soul Links is that the game provides so much of a challenge with unexpected events, and that can be entirely attributed to the two-player nature of the game. Each and every single Nuzlocke experience is different and is a unique challenge, and they will have their highs and their lows. And when you're playing with two players, anything can go wrong. So in this video, I'm going to tell you what I think are the 5 most difficult aspects of the Soul Link challenge. Starting off with ridiculous restrictions. If you guys have seen my hardcore Soul Link video, which is the first link in the description, by the way, you guys will know how much I complain about the primary type rule. What is the primary type rule? Well, the primary type rule is easily explained in my 2-minute how to play a Soul Link video, but in short, no Pokemon in either team can share the same primary type. What does that even mean? If I have a Charmander that has a fire type, my partner cannot have a primary fighting type. He cannot have a Arcanine, he cannot have a Moltres or anything like that because they're primary fire. And this is not exclusive to just the pairs. This takes into account the entire Pokemon team. So in order to have a full team of 6, you each need to have in total 12 unique primary types across both parties. That is very hard to actually do. But how difficult is that really? Well, when you think about it, in Generation 1, I'm looking here at the list in front of me. Generation 1 has 15 types. Generations 2 through 5 has 17 types. And Generation 6 and onwards has 18 types. So when you're going to have to get 12 of 18 types from just Generation 6 or onwards, you can already know it's going to be difficult. But the primary type rule is only half the challenge. The other half of the challenge is team building. Because pairs are linked to one another, the pair either goes in the party together or in the PC together. You cannot separate them. So this combined with the primary type rule creates a scenario where you and your partner need to decide whether you should leave an otherwise strong pair inside the box or in your party. And this is something that we actually have to deal with in our hardcore Soul Link, is that we have to box our starter pair, which was a Torterra and a Azumarill, in order to bring in 2 other pairs into the team. Because if not, we would have been taking on the second gym leader with only 2 Pokemon. So we decided it was important that we bench that Pokemon, that pair, in order to bring in 2 unique pairs. So instead of going in with 2 pairs, we'll be going in with 3 pairs. And that makes it a little bit more manageable. However, all pairs are not created equally. So you might as well be leaving a stronger pair in the PC in order to bring in 2 weaker pairs in order to have the number advantage, or you risk it going in with 1 stronger pair. So that is something that you guys have to deal with. And ultimately, these types of discussions that you're going to have to with your partner boils down entirely to communication. And this leads itself into the next difficult aspect of the challenge. And what is that? Coordination. Soul Links at its core is all about coordination between you and your partner. And most of the time, coordination is all about logistics and not actually playing the game. You and your partner would already know how to play Pokemon to begin with, but Soul Links, you have to coordinate with somebody else. And that introduces a very unique problem into the challenge. And what is that? Well, let me list them off for you. You have to coordinate a time where both you and your partner are available to play the game. This is a lot harder than a lot of people give it credit for, because this leads into other things, and that is that you have to keep track of everything. So, what do you have to keep track of? You have to keep track of which Pokemon are linked to one another. You have to keep track of the primary types on both teams. You have to keep track of deaths, areas encountered, level caps, and game progression. And even with all of that, you and your partner have to play the game throughout its many battles. And you are not playing your partner's game, and your partner is not playing your game. You guys are playing separately, and sometimes you guys will not be focusing on what's happening on your partner's screen. So what happens? A lot of human error, which is the third difficult aspect of the Soul Link challenge. You guys already know, whether it be getting distracted by eating a chicken sandwich or leaving in a Tyranitar against a Medicham. Human errors are bound to happen, and when you have 2 players playing 2 separate games that are linked to one another, human mistakes are incredibly punishing. All right, your run and your friendships will die because of preventable mistakes, but there is something that you can do about it. Human error is human error at the end of the day, and it can be mitigated. How can it be mitigated? Well, through conscious gameplay. Knowing what is the best option, or simply knowing what is the wrong option, could mean the difference between saving a pair or losing a pair. And this aspect of the game is within your control. But you know what's not in your control? RNG. That's right. the inevitable, the unavoidable, the sole reason why sweaty players say Pokemon is not a competitive game. RNG is simply something you cannot control, whether it be getting frozen, damage rolls, or critical hits. And oh boy, do I really mean critical hits. RNG will probably be the reason why even the most experienced Nuzlockers lose their runs. Now, when you have two players playing side by side, it's only logical to assume that RNG becomes a much more important factor in your runs. You can go through the first 3 gyms without getting any unlucky crit deaths. However, that does not mean that your partner will have that same amount of luck. They can get 3 crits in a single battle and lose a pair, and because they lost a Pokemon, that means you also lost a Pokemon, and there is nothing that you can do. So when you go deeper into a run, RNG becomes a much more of an important factor that you have to play around, and honestly, it makes winning a challenge a lot more luck oriented, and you really do got to get lucky in a lot of these runs, because you and your partner both need to be lucky. You getting lucky on your own is not enough. You guys both need to be lucky, and that's what makes the challenge so much more difficult. Imagine completing an Emerald Kryzo run and saying you weren't lucky. You always will have a moment in a run where it would be very lucky for you to even survive, and kind of save the runs in general. You have to go for it. Thank you. Yeah! And let's be honest, the further you get into the run, the more you are going to have to play around crits and other RNG dependent factors. So when you take all of that into account and the previous aspects of the challenge that I've stated before, it becomes clear that Soul Links are very easy to lose. If you made it this far into the video, it should be clear by now that Soul Links are just a different breed of a Nuzlocke challenge. The snowball concept of losing a key mon and leading into a quick defeat later on is especially true in Soul Links. All right, and when you consider of the ridiculous restrictions that you have to deal with when it comes to team building and the primary type rule, coordination really is a very, very important factor of the Soul Link challenge. But even if you're coordinating well with your partner, human mistakes are bound to happen. So you need to try your best in order to mitigate it, in order to protect your mons as much as possible. However, even if you play extremely well, RNG will come knocking on your door to collect a debt that needs to be paid. And there's nothing that you can do about it. You can only play around it, but RNG will come for you. So if all of those things don't come together in your favor, your run will suffer a quick march to defeat. Thank you so much for watching.